First of all, a core part of Lovevery's mission is to help caregivers raise inclusive children. How do you encourage this mission? And first of all, how would you frame your mission, and how do you encourage the mission across your team?
Yes. Well, we really want to help every parent feel confident that they're giving their child and their baby the very best start in these super critical early years. So if you think about how babies are developing, we really focus a lot on research. So babies and children learn by categorizing in the early years. So early on, they show bias towards familiar identities, which is really healthy, but they also tend to show bias against unfamiliar identities. And this shows up early. So we want to provide positive exposures to lots of different groups to lessen that bias. So if that helps give you a perspective.
How do you think about supporting parents?
Yeah, parents need tools that they can feel really good about and products they can feel really good about putting in front of their babies that help achieve their intentions to raise inclusive children. So we have one of the best tools are books. And so and our books provide, they provide a function of a mirror to children. So it's like a positive reflection of people who are like them. And then they also provide a window, like positive stories about people who are less familiar from them. So learning about another group through this window type story can help build familiarity and empathy and prevent these negative biases from forming from the beginning and help children become more inclusive. So our books are tools that parents really appreciate because it's so joyful to just read a book to a child on your lap. There's nothing, more kind of connected in that parenting moment. And our books always show a broad range of diversity, especially in terms of race and other identities like disabilities. So that's how the world really is. And our team is really aligned with representing this mission.
One of the things that I've been impressed by in terms of Lovevery's approach as well is that you've thought about inclusion very holistically. You thought about it from the perspective of your team, but you've also integrated it into the product itself, which I know which is very powerful, but it also can be very challenging. What have been some of the challenges along the journey of creating inclusive products for children?
So one of our challenges is that Lovevery books feature photos of real children who are very unpredictable. So for our photo shoots, we often plan a few options for each child and then choose the images that feel the most authentic and, adjust the writing to match the photos. So one parent, as an example of these challenges, pointed out that having a little girl portraying shy could reinforce gender stereotypes. And so at our photo shoot, we had, tried that model with different emotions, and shy was just really what came through in her photos. It just happened to be reflective of her little sweet personality. So we take all of this feedback really seriously, but again, working with real children can present a lot of challenges.
Of course. And, that's always one of the tough things of having one representative in a book, for example, one main character, is that, of course, that person can't possibly tell all of the stories of their representative group, which is why the more diverse characters we have, the better.
Yeah, so that is such a challenge because no community is a monolith. And we really want to show within each community that there are so many experiences. And so I think that it can feel like a lot of pressure. We never want one family to feel that pressure to speak for their entire community. So, I will say that I so appreciate, GV's investment in us because it's allowed us to bring in consultants so that we can bring more perspectives into our book. So we have one example of a book called A Haircut for Lunar New Year. And the family in the book translated the phrase Happy New Year in the way that their family writes it. So we hired a consultant and they suggested that if we add a second way to write Happy New Year and show both simplified and traditional Chinese characters in the same book, in the same line, that would be more inclusive. So the next print run will reflect that, but sometimes expanding beyond what one family does is just an easy adjustment that can help more families feel represented.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like you must learn so much in this process from the feedback, but also you have to balance how you integrate the feedback with telling a full story for the protagonist in your books. So what have you done to overcome some of the challenges, that you've been that you've been working on? For example, in that case, you took the customer feedback in. What are some other ways you overcome these challenges and move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's also about creating books that go in the opposite direction of what we might typically associate with any representation. So, this is an example. For example, we have this book, A Day at the Beach, and it features this little boy feeling really overwhelmed. And, this was authentic. He really was overwhelmed at this photo shoot. He didn't want to wade in the ocean, and he cried during the photo shoot. So in this story, this little boy learns coping strategies like asking for space or moving away to play quietly. And this kind of pushes against gender stereotypes. So for Lovevery, having more than one portrayal of, kind of what it looks like to feel vulnerable lets us normalize, that vulnerability is okay for any gender.
That's super powerful. When we think about some of the toxic gender norms that are imposed upon children very young, it's amazing that your books are, again, broadening that worldview. Do you have any advice, Jessica, as to how other companies might be able to think about, infusing inclusive thinking into their early product building? I know we have lots of different types of companies, but what advice might you give another founder or CEO?
It's so important to bring in people from different backgrounds from day one. I think that sometimes we can get into the habits of leaning on consultants a lot, just kind of a consultant to look at the final draft, but it's so much better when the people from that community are key stakeholders in the project from the beginning. And so to have you at GV has been invaluable to us. We were so grateful for your leadership. Of course, there's the investment, but there's been no other VC fund that has offered us a resource like you, that has been consistent, that has been so personable and offered really professional feedback on really hard topics. So thank you, Candace.
Let me ask you, what's next at Lovevery in terms of your equity, diversity, and inclusion specific initiatives? You've had massive growth as an organization. Is there anything that you're excited about coming up in the next year?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, on the product side, one of our sneak previews for our physical products is we are developing a doll who uses a wheelchair. And from day one of the product development and design, we are collaborating with this really smart consultant who's been a wheelchair user since her childhood. And so now she's a disability advocate. So she has immense expertise, both academic, she has a PhD in disability studies, and personal experience because she has written about growing up as a child who would have appreciated having that mirror experience of owning a disabled doll. So her insight has been invaluable, and we're really excited about this. Another initiative that we're launching, thank you for asking, is tomorrow we are announcing the building out of a new initiative around disability. So if a child has a disability or a learning exceptionality or any form of neurodiversity, sending our stage-based play kits, which are categorized by age, just may not be ideal. It just may not be the ideal way to engage that child. So our disability support specialist service allows families to contact our specialists, start a conversation, and customize a play kit subscription for their child's specific development goals and interests. So we have specific play guides that relate to their interests and goals that have been developed by a disability expert council. This council, oftentimes we say expert, our society thinks like an institutional credential, which is, a valuable kind of expertise, but it's not the only kind. Lived expertise is really important to us. So our disability council has, practicing clinicians, they're academic experts, they're parents whose children have disabilities. And remarkably, they are people who themselves have a lived expertise of physical disability and neurodivergence, as well as other intersections. So, specifically autism is so important to the Lovevery community. We have clinicians who work with children on the spectrum. We have parents whose children are on the spectrum and adults on our council who themselves are autistic and neurodiverse. So this perspective really provides richness in helping us figure out how to best be of service as we develop new products and launch our disabilities service.
In June, it's Pride Month, and it's also, for the second year ever, the federally recognized holiday of Juneteenth. And I just want to ask you, what does that mean? What significance does Juneteenth hold for you and for Lovevery?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely observing the public holiday, and we're offering resources to our employees to promote local Black-owned businesses in Idaho. To me, the story of Juneteenth is so complex, and it's a celebration of freedom, which is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, we can't forget the systems that enslaved so many people and caused so much harm, and how much work it takes to repair these systemic harms. And so, I see Juneteenth as a time to celebrate progress, but also a time to renew our commitment to further progress. So there's always so much work to do, and Lovevery is honored to do a small part of all that work.